Welcome to Freshman Film Room. I think most people are familiar with this series by now, so I'll be quick with the summary. We're putting together film breakdowns on each of UMass's incoming freshmen for next year, analyzing some strengths and weaknesses and potential fit from a sample of 5 or 6 games. As always, this isn't a definitive scouting report, just a primer to get a little more familiar with some of next year's recruits. Today, we'll look at Cairo McCrory. A 6'5", 175-pound guard out of Hartford, McCrory is the latest in a string of arrivals and Amherst from Woodstock Academy in Connecticut. He was the first commitment in this class, having made his decision back in August. McCrory's biggest weapon is his athleticism, and a lot of the upside of his game stems from it. He's got a quick first step and can get into the lane, he's strong enough to handle himself inside, and he can elevate with the best of them. He can overpower guys going baseline, and if you want a sense of what he's all about, I'll just let this clip play. He's just a really explosive athlete and can sky for alley-oops and putbacks along with those big dunks on the baseline. As a bigger guard, he can also bully smaller guys down low in certain matchups. He's also a sneaky good passer. He's got really good vision for a guy that's more of a 2 or a 3 than a primary ball handler. He's got some really nice assists in his bag and makes a lot of smart extra passes that lead to open shots. He can also throw a good entry pass, which is pretty important on a UMass team that very much revolves around dumping it down to a certain Trey Mitchell. With his athleticism also comes really solid rebounding. He probably won't put up the sort of rebounding numbers Mitchell and Samba Diallo do, but he's got a habit of jumping over people for rebounds much in the same way that Preston Santos does. What I find especially interesting about McCrory is that he's just a different sort of guy than anything UMass currently has. Sean East and Colt Mitchell are smaller, out-and-out point guards. TJ Weeks and Carl Pierre are the sharpshooters in the backcourt. Preston Santos and Samba Diallo are the lockdown wings with the length on the perimeter. McCrory isn't any of those things. He's a big, tough guard who can play a different sort of role. He actually reminds me a little bit of Keon Clergeot, if you stretched Clergeot out to about 6'5". He's strong, scrappy, has no qualms about putting his body in place, and can do a little work on the inside too. Truthfully, I struggle to evaluate McCrory defensively. I think the potential's definitely there. He's got the size and the athleticism to be a good on-ball defender, and I don't really have any concerns about his effort. He's never taking plays off or floating defensively. He has his fair share of positive moments. He can really hold his own inside, and his athleticism helps him rack up a few blocks too, and he's shown some flashes as a good on-ball defender. He also puts his body in plays pretty often, something UMass will love to have with Clergeot departing. I do wonder sometimes if the defensive instincts are completely there. From time to time, there's a rotation that's just a beat late, the awareness doesn't always feel like it's there, and there are times where he's a little slow sliding or turning his hips to stay in front of guys. He has this habit of turning his hips all the way around and sort of running downhill rather than a more typical defensive slide. That's really not the worst thing in the world. I think it can actually help him recover faster if he gets beat, even if it might leave him a little off balance on some plays and make him a little susceptible to stepbacks on others. Truthfully though, even guys like Preston Santos have a habit of doing this sometimes, and you can see how it actually helps Santos recover back here. I think McCrory has enough of those good moments defensively, especially with his athleticism, that he grades out as an above-average defender, just maybe closer to a Carl Pierre than a Samba Diallo or a Preston Santos. Offensively, I do have some questions about his touch inside. As strong and athletic as he is, there are times where the touch isn't really there, though he does have a few crafty finishes and some big dunks that can make up for that. I do also wonder about his three-point shooting. I don't have enough of a sample to draw any definitive conclusions about him as a shooter, but in the games that I watched, the ones that he missed seemed to miss pretty badly, which not everyone's going to be TJ Weeks, and I said something similar about Preston Santos before last season, and Santos went from shooting about 29% from deep at Woodstock to 42% this season, so who knows. He is capable of making some tough shots from time to time too. So, let's recap. Cairo McCrory's game centers around his exceptional athleticism. That athleticism helps him get into the lane, and a quick first step helps him beat guys off the dribble. He's got serious bounce and throws down some huge dunks when he's got room to take off. He's a smart passer with good vision in the half court, and he throws some good entry passes to Woodstock's big men. He can be a good on-ball defender, holding his own on the perimeter and in the post, and he brings the right energy on that end of the floor. I will mention that as another Woodstock product, he's comfortable pressing in the way that UMass will likely want to next season and already has some familiarity with a Woodstock-dominated team. On the flip side, while the tools for a good defender are there, I think his instincts and awareness can let him down from time to time. Some of that comes with reps and time, so I'm hesitant to call it some big flaw, especially with some of his positives on that end. I think his touch inside could use some work. There's a few too many layups that go unconverted, and I also don't know how well he can shoot from three, but again, I don't have a big enough sample size to call him a bad three-point shooter or anything like that. But overall, I like McCrory's game. My floor and ceiling for him is actually the same. It's Preston Santos. Specifically, I think his floor is non-conference Preston Santos, the guy who was a solid rotation piece and whose job the first 2 months of last season was to bring some energy and defense off the bench and meet Matt McCall's 10 hustle stats per game quota. I think his ceiling is conference play Preston Santos, a guy who saw significant minutes on the wing and whose energy and defense were so vital to the Minutemen in January and February. If we're just being honest about it, there's a chance McCrory might struggle to get the same minutes Santos did, just because of how deep UMass is at the 2 and the 3 at this point. Between Weeks, Pierre, Santos, Diallo, Debaji Walker, even Javon Garcia and John Buggs, there's not as many minutes to go around these days. But McCrory seems like a guy that rises to moments much like Santos does, and he gives UMass something different, a big, tough, athletic guard who can make plays on either end. Thanks for watching. You can follow the Collegian on Twitter at MDCollegian and at MDC_sports and myself at Amin_Tory, and you can find all of our content at dailycollegian.com. Special thanks to Chris Tucci, Felicia Cordy, and Tina Torrey. Next time, we'll cover DeAndre Dominguez.